Okay. Well, first and foremost, I hope everybody's doing well. And again, thank you for joining the meeting. And we wanted to take a moment to thank Peggy Ball, who is rotating off as the CCSA board representative to governance, for her contributions really to this committee, Durham PreK. And, I feel like I've known her for years when I started FPG in like 2000 and something, I remember. But although Peg is rotating off the committee, we know she'll continue to be a valuable resource and advocate for Durham PreK and our teachers, our children, and our families. So just thank you, Peggy. So hopefully if you're watching somewhere, eventually watch this, knowing that we are sending a really huge thank you and for all that you have done and continue to do. And I would also like to welcome a new governance committee member and 2 new CCSA Durham PreK team members. We are pleased to have Sharon Hirsch join the governance committee. And is Sharon here? Make sure she give that. Okay, good. Here you go. Good morning, Sharon. Just so you know, she is the new CCSA board chair and will be joining the committee as a voting member. Sharon, if you don't know, is the president and CEO of Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina. She has multiple years, 25 years of experience in nonprofit and government agency management, and just a strong advocate for children education and an active member of Durham community. And so we're so excited to have her obviously be both the board chair for CCSA, but also to be part of our governance committee. So again, welcome, Sharon. And once I finish, it'll be, if you want to say a few words, feel free. Just a free meeting. And so, right? Nobody has to pay. So CCSA is also excited to announce they have filled the open Durham PreK position. Woohoo! So welcome, Jenna Fuchs. Am I saying that right? Fuchs? Am I saying that, Jenna? Am I saying your last name right?
It's Fuchs.
Fuchs, thank you.
Yeah.
Jenna Fuchs, thank you. And Tosh Adams. I should have had that already, but I didn't. And so Jenna is the Durham PreK manager, and she's worked in human services for 16 years. A native of Finger Lakes, New York, who recently relocated to the Triangle. 8 years of experience as the program coordinator for Head Start and Universal PreK, and just has a deep passion for early child education and appreciation for the holistic approach taken by high quality ECE programs. So welcome, Jenna. So excited for you to be the Durham PreK manager. And finally, want to welcome also Tosh Adams, the outreach and family engagement coordinator, an educator and childcare administrator for over 10 years, has 3 years experience with outreach for a nonprofit organization and community support program, serves as vice chairperson of the Durham Special Needs Advisory Committee, and just has been involved in advocacy and currently serves as a PTA advocacy chair at her son's school. So again, we are so thrilled to have Sharon Hirsch join us, Jenna, and of course, Tosh. So welcome, and thank you so much. See all the chats. So thank you. And thank you to both Linda and Monty and team for pulling, letting us know and pulling those remarks together for us to welcome, new members to our committee and also to CCSA. Okay.
And we will be sending, I did talk to Peggy, and she, was passing the torch to Sharon, but expressed her willingness to stay as a resource if we ever need anything. And we will be sending her something from this group and in appreciation of her service. So
thank you. All right, am I passing it back to you, Linda, Monty?
Sure. Monty, you set? Were you able to fix it?
No, haven't figured it out, but I'm sending it to Katie, who is a pro, and she's gonna get it loaded. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Well, what I'll do while we're waiting on those slides is I'll just review and remind everybody that if you'll put in the chat, just to help us confirm attendance, if you'll put in the chat your name and your agency, and if there's anything you want to share with the group, feel free to put that in there. But we'd appreciate you taking a moment to do that and put it in the chat. And we remind everybody that we are live streaming on YouTube, and that the recording of the meeting is just for our notes purposes and is not something that we don't do notes that are minute by minute. So just remind everybody about our virtual meeting protocols. We've agreed that we'll mute unless we're speaking. We'll have our camera on if it's feasible. We'll use the chat box at any time for comments and questions. And obviously feel free to raise your hand at any time, either with a reaction or jump in, because we want to encourage discussion as we always have in these meetings. And also, if you'll be patient with technical challenges, which we've already had one. And if you need to leave early, if you don't mind messaging Melinda, unless several of you have already let us know that you might have to leave early. So if you haven't, though, if you will message us, we appreciate it. So our meeting objectives today, Katie's sharing the screen. So if you'll move to that meeting objectives slide, which is the 5th one, Katie, I'd appreciate it. We need to approve our meeting notes. Then we're going to share program updates. We will receive a further program review, and we do have one vote today. Well, at least one vote. You may choose to have others, but we need to do a clarifying vote from a previous motion in a different meeting, and we'll talk about that. We're going to have a presentation from Durham's Partnership for Children on some survey data from the school year 22 pre-K applicants, and we'll look forward to that after the break. And we're going to have a breakout session. Our last meeting, we had a breakout session to have you have an opportunity to talk about our upcoming fund development work and efforts. And this time we felt like those discussion groups were really positive and gave us quite a bit of good information. And so we're going to break out the latter part of the meeting to talk about our potential funding priorities to move forward, and a request to the county commissioners for their consideration for potential ARPA dollars. Okay, if you'll go to the next slide. Iama, we need to approve the notes.
Yes. Just make sure everybody obviously has a copy of the notes in your email. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes, approve our notes from September 2021? Right? That's the one we're approving, right? I see two.
Yes,
Sure, okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
I make the motion that we'll approve them.
Thank you, Beth. Is there a second?
I second. This is Waikisha.
Thank you, Waikisha. Any questions or concerns? Okay. And so we could do, are we doing yays or nays? I always forget. I should know by now, right? But all the yays, just if you use your reaction button, or if you're, Beth, you're on the phone, if you want to say yay. Oh, thank you. I see your reaction. Thank you. Make sure. All right. You can use your reaction button right there on the right-hand side for voting members. Okay. Any nays? So use your reaction button, the X. Okay. Ben, are you saying a nay? I just want to make sure. Oh,
no, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm having technical issues. Mine wasn't a yay.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure.
There it goes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm a yay. Thank you for removing. I was a yay and it would not remove. So
thank you. It probably takes a little second. I think it has been a little clunky last time. It was having the same issue. So thank you. I think that unless there was any nays, I just want to make sure there wasn't any nays. Okay. That motion has passed. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Katie, you want to move to the next one? Thanks. All right, we're going to turn it over to Monty Griggs, who is our director of our quality enhancement initiatives. And she's, since Jenna is still in her onboarding process as the new Durham PreK manager, we're going to ask Monty to share just some highlights from the handout that you received in your You received it in advance as well as last night in the handout packet. Monty?
Yep. Good morning,
Okay,
everyone.
Katie, you can go back. Yep.
Just to review some of the updates that we'd like to share that you received in your packet, just want to highlight a few things. First, related to children and families, we've received 1,867 applications that have been submitted to our online universal application system. 1,038 placements or offers were made, with 853 families accepting their placements, and then some more we're waiting to review and waiting for responses from to accept their placements. You can see that our family support department has been working to help assist families. They've done 80 appointments related to helping families complete applications, and they've had over 2,000 contacts with families to help them navigate the system and answer questions. Right now, NC PreK seats for both private, for all venues, private, Head Start, and DPS are at 77% filled. That kind of breaks down into 85% for private sites, 44% for public schools. For those seats that are Durham PreK and NC PreK, we're at 79% full. We continue to do outreach and accept applications and try to assist families with enrolling in the program. We have received feedback from several families that COVID is still impacting their decision, especially, we offered over 1,000 placements, but we only have 853 filled right now, and a lot of that feedback has been related to COVID. So we continue to monitor that, and we also, when those families indicate that, we put them on the wait list to check back with them, so that later in the year they may want their security around the safety of their children and programs may change, and they may decide to go into a program. So we're continuing to communicate with those families to see at some point if they do want to accept the placement. But we are hearing that. Is there a
I'm sorry,
question?
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure I understand, because when I looked at this, maybe it was just late at night. I just couldn't think thoroughly. So are we saying that enrollment, so basically at private sites, the seat allocation so basically you've offered seats, and then for those that accepted is at 85%, compare that to 44% for public school sites. So basically, are we saying that families are likely to say yes to their enrollment at a much higher rate at private versus at a public school site?
Let me hop in and explain a little bit. So it's a little bit misleading because Durham Public Schools has a broad, and I know Nakia may want to weigh in on this, but Durham Public Schools has many seats that are funded in a variety of ways. What that number refers to are just the seats that are locally funded and graded with NC PreK. So Durham Public Schools is serving a large number of children, but when we meet in January, we will present across the whole continuum of services, because Head Start and Durham Public Schools have other seats that we get the numbers typically in November for. So yes, right now, the Durham Public School enrollment rate in the locally funded through Durham PreK and NC PreK state funds, enrollment is a bit down. However, they have high enrollment across the district in other seats. So we've been working with Sue Cotterman and her team, analyzing why people have turned down their seats, and many families have turned down seats across the board due to their concerns for safety. But we do have a couple of private sites and a couple of school sites that the turn down rate has been high, and we're working with those private seats to address why parents may not feel comfortable accepting a seat at those locations. And we're also working with Sue and her team to figure out exactly across the board what the issues are that might make some seats have a higher turn down rate than others. But it's something we're still studying, and I wouldn't want to jump in and speculate at this point, other than just that COVID has really upended everything.
This was
I don't
data
know.
before, and this is data before, as of when, so it's as of, so not since the 5-year-old and up vaccine. So this is really just more like a month ago data, or yeah.
It's very early November data.
No, that would matter because the kids are still under age 5.
Yeah.
So okay, thank you. I see Nakia has Nakia, you probably have one.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Linda, for that update. We do have, as Linda, everything Linda said is absolutely accurate. We did share a very quick update with the county commissioners, and I say quick, literally it was like NASCAR fast. And we will be sharing an update with our board either December or January. Happy to work with this group to either send those materials so this group can see that. That way you can see, and to Linda's point, we have seats that are locally funded. We have federally funded seats. We also have to make sure that we have our inclusion seats so that we're being very thoughtful around our students that are identified and have disabilities. So it's just not, the summary is just that, a summary. It does not necessarily tell the whole story. I do think the same challenges that our private providers are having that were mentioned, we are also experiencing. So there, yes, are some families that are hesitant due to still grappling with the pandemic. We still are having some of the challenges that other providers are having regarding RAP care and transportation. So all of those factors in a very complex system impact a family's decision of whether to send their youngster to a pre-K classroom.
Thank you for that. Yes, I definitely agree. So this is obviously, yes, I just want to make sure I understood the numbers. I'm glad for us to just share. Beth, you have a comment you want to share?
I just had a question, and I know I should know this, so I apologize. But if a parent turns down a specific location for whatever reason that is there an opportunity for them to be offered another seat, or is it like, I feel like there is, you're nodding. Okay. I was just wondering like what those options are and when it becomes something that people decide to just opt out of the system altogether.
Yeah, so what happens is when a family is offered a seat, and it depends on when it is in the process. If it's, sometimes if it's an early offer, some families may have been super hesitant and said, I just can't commit right now with they were keeping an eye on the pandemic. And so we asked them if they want to go on the waiting list for us to check back with them. But if it's related to the location for whatever reason, if the location offer they feel doesn't align with their needs, then we do put them also on the waiting list. Waiting list is kind of not the right word, but a holding list. And after we get the acceptances from the offers we've already made, we review what is still available, and what might align with what the parent gave us in terms of feedback. When they apply, they are given the opportunity to request preferences. We're not able to let them pick where they go because of all the different parameters around placement, but we do ask them their preference, and we almost always are able to give them one of their preferences. But if you're offered your third preference, you may still want to hold out for a different site. And so we do go back and forth and communicate quite a bit, and we do make second offers, third offers. We try to work with families. And now I'm not going to pretend that it is a perfect system and the most family-friendly system in the world. We want to make it as family-friendly as possible. But the reality is that there are families who really want a certain site that we're sometimes really not able to provide them with. And also it can be frustrating for families because of the entire process, they may be offered a seat and think they're going to take it and change their mind. Sometimes that happens too, where they accept it and then they change their mind about the location. So it's very much an individual process. It's not like a mass system. I don't know if that covers your questions, Beth.
No, that's helpful. I was just kind of wondering, like, how many tries does family get to find a good connection?
Yeah, and that's something we're analyzing. You know, that was one of the reasons we transitioned to the online portal system, and we're using an external software system that we can see how many offers. You know, we can analyze that deeply, and that's one of the things we are doing, is taking a deep dive on how many families completely turn down the offer, which also is a reality. Some families say, you know, we've changed our mind and we don't even want to be on the waiting list. But we are, as part of our planning for next year, we're deeply analyzing all of that information so that we can assure a even better system next year. This year was the first year we used that system, and we are working with the company to make significant changes for next year so that we can have even more tools available to us. The other thing, just quickly, that happened this year that was a big impact on families was because of COVID and because of the very real shortages of staffing and a variety of other things, some providers that had intended to offer wrap care changed their mind due to capacity challenges. And that created a bind because we offered families seats that indicated they needed wrap care. We placed them in a site that was supposed to have wrap care, and then the site was not going to have wrap care. And that created a big challenge for us and for families. And we're working through that in planning for next year. The reality is the staffing shortages are having a tremendous impact, as I know you hear on the news all the time, but they really are creating some huge challenges, in particular with wrap care this year.
Which is the perfect segue into talking, giving updates about our providers. As Linda mentioned, staffing is a huge challenge with some of our sites, as it is statewide and nationally. So the TA team is working with providers on identifying strategies and helping to provide them with support as they try to recruit and hire staff for their classrooms. We are continuing intensive TA with our Durham PreK providers and providing professional development for them. Since August, we have provided 86 hours of professional development for the teachers and directors to participate in. We've also been offering the Making the Most of Classroom Interaction, which is a 12-session course. And to date, we've trained 42 teachers on this course. And we've also trained 15 directors for Durham PreK on becoming class observers, which is the assessment tool and framework we use to measure teacher interactions and instructional support in classrooms. We are pleased to be offering a Durham PreK track again at our upcoming Ask Conference, which will be in February. Based on feedback from directors and teachers, the focus of the Durham PreK track will be on creating strategies and enhancing strategies for teaching teams, teachers and teacher assistants working together to ensure equity and inclusion in the classroom. So that's what the training series will be on for the Ask Conference. And that's going to be February the 19th through the 22nd. It's going to be our 49th conference, so we're looking forward to it. Also wanted to let you know that we are currently getting applications for our capacity building component of technical assistance. We will be expanding that this year, and that technical assistance will begin in December to those sites who are applying now for that. For the systems and management and oversight, we right now are working with our partners and with our the SurveyMonkey Apply, who we use for our application, to enhance and work on the system to make it more family friendly for families to apply, as well as being able to gain access to more data and in an easier format. So we are working on the application for the 22-23 school year. It feels weird to say that. And that application will be open in February. So we're in the midst of planning for outreach and for the opening of that application for enrollment in February. Just wanted to also update that the governance committee voted in August to waive parent fees for the year. Wanted to let you know that that did have an impact on some families' decisions. Some families initially declined the seat because of the parent fee. We went back to those families and to let them know that for this year, in alignment with the state, we were waiving those fees. And we had several families that then in turn, based on that, take their placement. So that did have an impact. So wanted to let you know that that vote that you guys made really did make a difference for families. We had 30 families who would have been assessed a parent fee had that not been waived. So, and that's the update.
Okay, thank you, Monty. Appreciate that. And we'll talk a little more about those things that you voted on previously a little bit later in our agenda. Okay, Katie. So I wanted to talk for a few minutes about again about enrollment. So these numbers are a little bit later than the numbers that were in your update. And the reason that I wanted to talk about it was just because I had some folks contact me with questions about, excuse me, about, you know, the county commissioners did put in additional money this year, and we wanted to expand seats with the majority of that money. And I had some folks ask me for perspective, and I know that it can be really confusing because we have such a strong initiative to braid funding, and we are pulling in resources from so many different places, and it can be very confusing when we are doing numbers. When we come back in January and you get a report out on all the pre-K, public pre-K in Durham, and all the variety of seat types, you know, I know that you will appreciate very much how challenging it is to track across all systems. But I wanted to just briefly address the Durham pre-K enrollment. So remember that when we say Durham pre-K enrollment, we're talking about any seat that utilizes braids funding from Durham County government. So we have what we call Durham pre-K only seats, which, for example, this year, Yates is one of the sites that all the seats in that classroom are paid for with local money. And they're new this year. And so, for example, a Durham pre-K only seat, you'll recall, is a seat that has no restrictions. So there's not any income restriction, there's not any developmental restriction. However, you have set as priority that a Durham pre-K only seat should still have a priority to serve the most needy children. And so when we're making placements, we are looking at the developmental screenings, the income information, all the different parameters around a child's application. And we are working very hard to assure that we have a process that prioritizes children in the way that you have asked us to. But because this group, governance is responsible for you know, the leadership around our local initiative, I wanted to just update you. So this time last year, we had 136 actual Durham PreK only seats. So that meant in our budgeting process, in our allocation process, we had 136 seats. This year, we've increased that and we have 173 allocated seats. Now, the only problem is the pandemic. And you'll recall that we're paying on allocation, not enrollment. And so we are spending at the allocated rate, but we are closely monitoring enrollment. So this time last year for Durham PreK only, we had 120 children enrolled. This year we have 137 as of the 17th. Looking at that, obviously that's not as high as we would like, but we're happy given the feedback from families about their concerns. We're happy to have those that we have. So in Durham PreK only, we're at basically the actual numbers as of the other day, we're at 79% enrollment. The last year, we were at a higher percentage of enrollment in Durham PreK only, but it was fewer children based on our seat numbers. Drew's raised his hand, so we might as well go ahead and let him ask his question. I'm sure yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, and sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I am wondering, right? I think this kind of full payment on allocations has been correctly viewed as an important tool to kind of help continue supporting our providers. And I don't want to hurt that. But at the same time, it seems to sort of, I don't know, just at least on the surface, sort of incentivize not necessarily working hard to get students butts in seats, which is really what we want. So we have multiple things we're trying to achieve. And I'm kind of wondering, who knows how long sort of these COVID related impacts will last? Who knows how long, we might want to offer some sort of support to providers based on allocation as opposed to enrollment. But I'm wondering, for the future, whether, allocated but unenrolled seats, for example, might be reimbursed at a partial rate, or something where we could kind of balance our various goals of supporting the providers, but still giving them an incentive to sort of get a kid in a seat, something like that. Just a thought.
Yeah, and we'll actually talk about this a little bit more later, but you'll recall that the state had the same concerns because they originally this school year didn't commit to paying on allocation for the whole school year. It's an optic that people feel uncomfortable with, but the reality is that none of us have lived through a pandemic before, and the reality of enrollment, the vacancy rate across our early childhood system. I was just doing a report for the Orange County commissioners, and one of the numbers that stood out was that in Orange County, across the pandemic, they've had a 46% decrease in enrollment across Orange County in all programs. And, so we know that this is a huge issue statewide. I do think that as we plan for next year, in our spring sessions, we're going to really take a deep dive in our funding model and really analyze how we want to move forward with payment, because this issue of vacancies is always a challenge in public pre-K, because a provider needs a steady budget and needs to be able to plan. And if there are vacancies, then it creates hardship in particular for the private providers that don't have as many resources. But in terms of enrollment, we are constantly pushing around enrollment, and but it is a very real issue. Anybody else have any questions about that or want to weigh in on that?
Linda, there could be an impact if Build Back Better passes on pre-K. I think that we can't actually forget that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another reason we'll be taking a really deep dive into our funding model. Hopefully we'll know a little more about whether, by the spring, if that passes, what things will look like. But further, just addressing the enrollment numbers, you'll see that we have listed there Durham PreK Enhanced. Now, you'll remember that that's a seat that is braided with all different sources of funding. It could be an NC PreK braid, it could be a Head Start braid, it could be a Durham Public School braid, but basically local dollars are enhancing a seat. And you can see there that, our enrollment there in the braided seats, we're at 85% enrollment in the braided seats this year, as opposed to this time last year, we were only at 57% enrollment in the braided seats. So we definitely, as the pandemic has gone on and things have improved with the vaccines, some families' confidence has gone up, and we do have significantly more enrollment than last year. So I think that's, just an important thing to remember, to know about. So, but we do, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I share the concerns about the optics and the idea that there's open seats sitting there, but I know there's so many families who do need care and want care. Bothers me a lot, but I do, there's my gut would say that we need to keep funding them, because the idea of losing the infrastructure by not funding them when we're hearing about all the infrastructure loss across the state makes me really uncomfortable as well. And I agree with Marcia that I think Build Back Better will change everything all across the board. And I hope we're going to have time to talk some about that, or at least talk about it in January. But I would also feel really concerned about pulling back from our child care providers at a time when so many of them are really struggling to stay open at all.
Yeah, I hear you for sure. Anything else about this? And we will be talking about this a little more in this meeting. Okay, Katie, you can go to the next slide. So speaking of that, Beth, I did want to just touch on where we are in relationship to the North Carolina budget. Not Build Back Better right now, but with the North Carolina budget. You'll recall that we were trying to hold money aside because we knew that there was going to be an increase for teachers. The North Carolina budget does fund an average of a 6.7% raise for public school teachers over the biennium. And we have been trying to prepare the private providers for that, reminding them that they will have to do a retro raise to July 1. And we will be working closely with them to analyze the teacher salaries once that budget's fully in place to appropriately give the raises that their teachers are eligible for and to back pay them. So obviously we've been paying our teacher enhancement payments to the sites since July based on what the current salaries were. Now we will go back and back pay also, because those enhancement payments are a percentage of those dollars. So you'll recall that those, we call them teacher compensation support payments. Those go to the provider, but they are specifically to support the hiring of more seasoned teachers, because we're paying on a graduated pay scale. And the compensation support payments start at 5% of the teacher's monthly salary at 0 years of experience. And the supplement increases by 1% each year, and then by 1.5% and 3% in later years. So because it's a percentage, obviously we'll be making back payments on those also. Drew was asking about the current budget. Right now, we had expected there'd be an average of around 5% raise. And what our next steps is, we are pulling all the teacher records and analyzing where we are. We think we've held back enough money, but we will definitely be following up quickly if we learn that we have not. It's a moving target because of a few things. Because of the staffing shortages, we actually have 8 teachers this year, which is higher than last year. We have 8 teachers right now who don't have their BK license, who are in school for their BK license. And those teachers get paid on the DPI scale versus the Durham Public School scale. So their increases are, their salaries are lower, but they are eligible for those same raises. So we'll be analyzing, and you will definitely be hearing from us if there's a problem. But we have tried to hold back enough to cover that. So the other impact to our budget from the state budget, which is a whole flip side of having to pay out more, is the fact that the state has finally put in money to increase the base reimbursement rate for NC PreK. Now, that means, but it's not a big increase, but it is, it is some. It's 2% this for this year, and 2% of the state NC PreK reimbursement is $12.40 per child per month. And they specifically said in the budget that they were giving this increase because they are aware of the salary disparities between the private sites and the public school sites. And interestingly, this 2% increase, according to the way the budget reads, is only for child care centers, private centers. It's not for our public seats at Head Start or the public schools. And so we're going to be having to do quite a bit of analysis to look at our pay, because you'll recall for Durham PreK, we are paying the difference. We pay $12.50 per child per month if it's a BK licensed classroom. If it's not a BK licensed classroom, we pay $1,200 per month per child. But we're paying the difference. If it's a braided seat, we pay the difference between the braid, where the money comes from. And if it's an NC PreK seat, that reimbursement rate, now that it's changing, is only going to change for some seats. And they couldn't have done it easily. It has to be complicated. But anyway, the challenge is that we don't know yet how much money this will mean. And we think between these things that we've set aside enough money, and what our plan is to come back to you in January with a thorough analysis of the impact. Because we also need to talk about whether we feel we need to increase our rates. That'll be something that'll be on our agenda for the future meeting. Any questions about that? Okay, Katie, you want to move to the next one? So the this is just to remind you. So the budget also impacts because of those match payments. So we pay the enhanced rate to the Durham PreK seats. A Durham PreK seat is in a classroom that meets the Durham PreK standards. They've gone through an RFA process, they've been selected, they're meeting a higher standard, they get paid at a higher rate per child. However, we also use the local money to pay the match payment for some NC PreK seats. The state has a $620 reimbursement rate, but Durham pays $944 per child per month for an NC PreK seat. The majority of match payments are made through Smart Start dollars. However, over time, with expansion of NC PreK, there was no more money to match the rate, to increase the rate. And our Durham PreK money for some seats pays the difference for NC PreK seats. So that will be another place where we'll be paying less because the state rate's going up. So that will also impact our budget. And I wanted to just make sure that you remembered that. Remember, our mantra is that Durham County local money gets spent last. We're always looking to bring in resources, for that purpose, to make sure that we are maximizing and leveraging resources. And that Build Back Better, obviously, if it passes, it will have an impact. Drew?
All right. Do we know, with the provider payments that go to them sort of based on teacher experience and so forth, kind of effectively what our average per kid per month is? Like, how much does it add to that effectively?
We do know, but I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'm happy to follow up and send it to you.
I think that's sort of interesting, right? Because, you know, in terms of, I keep 1250 in my head and it's been easy to keep in my head, but effectively we're doing more than that. And I'm just kind of, I think that might be a helpful number to kind of re-anchor ourselves on, and
Right.
to be you know, as we think about, you know,
The
increases
total investment.
and how we talk about this, that could be important.
Yeah, and we're more than happy to send that. The thing what we will do is obviously average it. What our goal was with that enhancement payment was to really encourage providers to hire the most qualified teacher. And so obviously some classrooms cost a lot more than others, but we can, I know we have it. I just don't remember what it is. I think that the moving target of the budget, because they put in there that it's only for childcare centers, the increase, you know, we will just have to really do some work once that budget is signed to try to make sure that we're on target. Okay, Katie, if you'll go to the next one. So again, Monty already referenced this and gave you this information in the update, but I just want to remind you that we did vote to suspend those parent fees, but we are continuing to calculate them just for our information purposes. And I think that's an important investment that we're making in the community. Also, not just stabilizing providers, but helping to stabilize families, because even though some families, obviously the families with a parent fee assigned are higher income, but they're, depending on the size of their family, they're not extremely high income earners. So, okay, next slide. So this is where we unexpectedly need to have a vote. We need to ask you for a vote. So back in August, governance voted to follow the North Carolina Division of Child Development and Early Education guidance and pay on those allocated spaces, which we've talked about earlier in the meeting. You charged us with monitoring enrollment, obviously, and monitoring that guidance because the guidance was slated to end in November. We did feel strongly that DCDE would likely extend throughout the year, and now they have. So they have confirmed that they're going to pay on allocation rather than enrollment through the rest of this school year. In our August meeting, you did vote, and you voted on the parent fee waiver, and you also voted to align with DCDE. But in our review of that motion, we felt that it really wasn't clear your intent beyond November. And so if you intend for us to continue to stay in line with NCDCDEE, then we feel like we do need to ask you for another vote to confirm your intent for the payment methodology for the rest of the school year.
Thank you for explaining that, Linda. Yes. So basically you're asking, just asking us for a motion. Should we do a new motion or should we confirm? It sounds like we should probably do a new motion. Okay, that basically votes to pay on allocated space through the rest of the school year.
If that's it, yeah, it seems like that was your intent, but it just wasn't clear enough, and I didn't feel comfortable spending that much money without a clear mandate.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so then the question is, so do we have a motion regarding allowing us to, so basically for obviously the CCSA to pay on allocation rather than enrollment through the rest of this school year?
So to be clear, school year is
This is a 10-month program, and we're in the 2021-2022 school term. So it would be payments through the end of the program in early June.
June. Okay. That's what I
Thank
thought.
you.
Just double checking.
Oh, good. Nope. Good clarification, but yes.
I'm happy to make the motion that we will align with NCDC DEE guidance and pay on allocated spaces through the end of the school year, June of 2022.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thanks, Ben. Is there a second?
Sharon, I'll second that.
Thank you, Sharon. Any questions or comments? Okay. If you are voting yay for that motion, can you please use your reaction and vote yay? You can use the raised hand, the thumbs up or the check yes. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll give a second for them to clear out before. Thank you for your vote. Are there any nays? You can use your reaction of the X button if that's needed, or also feel free to unmute and let us know.
Hey, I don't think I can vote on this. Isn't that right? There's a conflict of
Right.
interest. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, June, for reminding the group about that.
Sure.
Okay, so it looks like the motion has passed. Thank you so much. Hey, Linda, you got your marching
We
order.
appreciate that. Yeah, appreciate that a lot. Okay, Katie, we'll go to the next one. So we're going to ask, so you'll recall that in our last meeting, we shared that our new team member, Dr. Marina Mendoza, who's the director of our scholarship programs, also has extensive preschool leadership experience in the universal program and has joined our team and is taking the lead on the quality subcommittee, which is one of your subcommittees of this governance group that includes membership both from this group as well as from the larger community. So Marina's going to do a brief update about the work of that quality subcommittee.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Linda. First off, I just want to say that I'm honored to be leading the subcommittee, knowing all the productive work that has gone on throughout the last couple of years, and especially creating an equity plan that is, we hope, at least in the coming year or two, start to put into action in building on that momentum. So last meeting, we reviewed some of the data, which will actually start to be some of the regular components of the meeting, knowing that we want to be data-driven and make decisions based on that, and we're reviewing it from all angles. And so we did that and also started to brainstorm some ideas on where to start. And our big vision is to be able to take that plan and take other issues that may come up, review them, think about them, and create recommendations for the governance committee to review, refine, and then hopefully at the end of that process, implement them to help make this program better, not just for us, but especially for families in the community. So one thing we are looking for our members. So if you are interested, please let us know. The next meeting we will have is on January 13th from 10 a.m. to noon. And looking forward to new members and also continuing the work of the members that have sat on that subcommittee in the past.
Thanks, Marina. I really appreciate it. And we're excited about you moving this group forward. We feel like the quality subcommittee is such a critical component of the work of governance. And I know that the work on the equity plan was really intense. And once that work was completed, we have a few members who rolled off of the quality subcommittee. So we will, as Marina mentioned, we'll be actively recruiting. So if you have an interest, please definitely let us know. And we'll also send out information to the entire governance in case once you get through the holidays, you're looking for a new activity and challenge in January. So Yama, we're at a spot where we're ready to take our break.
Okay, it is 10:35. And so I will welcome us to come back together and come back together. So yes, so take your last drink of water or stretch, or you continue doing that if you want. But welcome back. Then I'll pass it back to Linda as well. So thank you. I hope you had a nice little break and stretch there.
Thank you. So we are really fortunate, and with this project, we work very, very closely with the NC PreK program under Durham Partnership for Children's Leadership. They are the contract administrator for the state in managing NC PreK and are completely at the core and heart of all the public pre-K success in Durham. And I'm going to turn it over to Danielle, who is going to share with you some information that their agency gathered. We thought it was really important that you hear from them directly about the hard work they did to survey families. So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle.
Thanks, Linda. It's always a joy when I'm able to say that I am the executive director of Durham's Partnership for Children, seeing my former boss on the call. That always brings joy to my heart, Marsha. I must tell you that. It's like a full circle. So Marsha hired me back in 2008. So I'm so glad. So you took a chance on that New Yorker. So thank you. And thanks, Linda. We have really enjoyed our partnership with CCSA as we are building the DPK program here. And I'm really excited because we have some really fresh data that we received from our parents during their application and placement process. So Brittany, our director of programs, really got us even further through this process and sharing of this report that was shared with our school readiness committee and now sharing with this body as well.
Thank you, Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
So Katie's going to share the slide deck from Durham's Partnership, which was included in your handout packet. We inserted those slides in the handout packet for you also for your information.
And it's not showing up as an option on my screen. So just one moment while I think I might have to close one or two other things for it to allow me to see the partnerships on PowerPoint. Here we go.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
I'm off mute. So good morning, almost said good afternoon. I feel like time is flying by these days. But again, thank you, Danielle, for opening this up and for the CCSA team for letting us share our fall parent survey information. So the survey covered the satisfaction of the application process, placement, and families' overall experience. This next slide, please, Katie. So the survey ran from October 1st through October 15th. We had 253 responses, which I believe is one of our highest survey responses thus far. We had 218 of the responses were in English and 35 in Spanish. We did offer the survey in both languages. We offered Target gift cards to boost participation. And the questions evaluated the strengths and barriers around the ease of the application, enrollment, the placement process, and then their pre-K site experience. They had the chance to share their thoughts and feelings and experiences about their interactions with admin, teachers, in the classroom. Next slide, please. So again, the survey, so the ease of application, 83% of families said that they were either satisfied or very satisfied. With the acceptance rate, 92% of the families that completed the survey accepted placement and their children are currently attending. And I wanted to add, we sent the survey out to anyone who started an application, whether it was incomplete, whether they declined, whether they stayed on the wait list, because we wanted to get a full picture of either why parents stopped or why did they decline. So again, we made sure to include a wide range of applicants or families into this process. So again, so with the first choice, like parents are able to provide for private sites, not their ranked choice, if they are unable, and we use that information to best match where we're going to place families. But we do share that we can't always guarantee placement, but we do try our best to find locations that are either close to work or close to home. And 80% of families that completed the survey received their top choice, which we are excited about that number. Next slide, please. So 94% of families said that their site was welcoming and inviting. So again, this is going from the application process to more of the site level data. 90% of families were satisfied with their site's COVID-19 protocols, and 90% of families were satisfied with their pre-K experience so far. So again, this survey captured August and September, so that very beginning of the school year. Next slide, please. So barriers around application, notification, and placement experience. And again, this was our first year being completely online, so there were a lot of lessons learned. Families expressed that they had either difficulty or there were many documents that they had to upload, timing notifications, that they needed earlier notifications to be able to make plans for the beginning of the school year. And again, that goes to the need of earlier program placement, and then gaps in communication. And what that means is that if a family applied in February, right when the application ended, they wouldn't receive their placement until June. So that was, this is another big thing that families express. They just want updates along the way, and we're taking this feedback and implementing it into the process for next school year. And then placement experiences. I know that this group has heard of these again, but again, the need for transportation, the location is either too far from home or work. And this has been a big one, location, just because of the housing market. Families are being displaced or in different areas of the county where our sites are. So again, we're looking at that. The need for wrap care and more communication from our sites, and what I mean by sites, the administration from our pre-K sites as well as teachers. Next slide, please. And then here were a couple of testimonials from families. And I failed to mention that the survey, it allowed families to use the Likert scale, but we also had open-ended responses as well. And this is a very high-level summary of the survey that went out. So one family said that the process was smooth and easy, and that staff helped them through the whole process. This one really made my heart happy. All 7 of my children attended a Durham pre-K program, and I have recommended it to all people with 4-year-olds. And this isn't listed on this summary, but we know that word of mouth is the highest way, or the highest point or data point with families finding out about pre-K, whether it's from their site or a family or a friend. That is the families are the messengers in our county about their pre-K experiences in inviting more families to join into the fold. I love the program. It's been really helpful for my daughter, and then it's been a great experience. I appreciate the service being available. Next slide, please. So again, family barriers, reasons for placement decline. And Linda spoke to this earlier, the beauty of having the online application, we're able to track in real time why families are declining. And again, location, well, not again, but location concerns came up. And examples of that, like neighborhoods just concerned about safety or appearances. And then the need for extended hours, that has been a big need in our family, or for our families, especially those who are re-entering the workforce. And then location is too far. Next slide, please. So then last but not least, there was, again, an open-ended question about what are you looking forward to this school year with your child's pre-K experiences. And we saw there were quite I did a Wordle. The teacher and me had to use this tool. It's been a minute, but our families stated that they wanted their children to be ready for kindergarten. They wanted their children to have learning experiences, the opportunity to be creative, to learn about literacy, math. A big one that we also saw was social skills, especially because of the pandemic. Many of our children have been isolated these last couple of years. So just having that opportunity to be in a social environment around their peers and to have just that normal pre-K experience, families are really excited about that. And that is it. Are there any questions or anything that I can elaborate on?
Brittany, can you remind me what percent of our programs offer wrap care?
I don't have that number on me, but I can definitely get that number to Linda for her to share in the email follow-up.
Because you mentioned it twice, and I think that is a big, that's it's a big issue. It's why I don't need to tell this group, but it's why we can't separate pre-K from childcare, because we need to work for working parents.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, definitely.
Thanks for providing that information.
And you'll recall that this year we are we're completing a review of options for extended care and taking a deep dive. We're just getting that started. We'll be doing some interviews of providers, looking at different considerations for potential incentives, but really the wrap care is always a challenge, but in the pandemic with the staffing shortages, it's just become really just a looming huge issue, even more than normal.
We're in the process again doing an analysis of what is available, which providers are providing wrap, which ones intend to provide once they hire staff. So we are literally in the process. A letter is going out today, I believe, Britt, correct? That
yes.
Will try to assess where we are with providers who can provide wrap at this point or who plan to pick up wrap and provide.
We're also looking at if potentially there might be some support, possibly through Arpa, to rethink our model of support for wrap care. We have some families who are able to access financial support through DSS vouchers, and we have some limited Smart Start scholarships for wrap for public preschool. But the reality is there are many more families who need it than those dollars have been historically available. Well, thank you so much to the partnership. Does anybody have anything else? I see that June's weighing in. I know June, as a provider, I'm sure you deal with this wrap care issue frequently. I was looking in the chat. June was sharing about the expense.
Yeah, so it's definitely a barrier for some families. It sort of puts them off, I think, entering pre-K at all if they can't pick their kid up at 3 or they don't know how to wait till 8:30. These are our hours, 8:30 to 3. So sometimes they can't wait till 8:30 to bring them. They can't pick them up at 3. And I think it is a barrier for some families. And one family we've had this year has expressed, that actually we thought maybe we could use some of our stabilization grant funds to help out these families because, one family expressed to me that they simply don't have the money for RAP care, but they need it. So, yeah, anyway.
Maybe that goes into the ARPA conversation.
Yes. Funny you should mention that, Marcia.
Just thought.
Marcia's been itching for that one.
Okay, if you'll move the slides forward, Katie, that'd be great. Thanks. And I think we're just really fortunate to have such partners as Durham's Partnership for Children because this work is so collaborative and can only be successful through those strong collaborations. So, okay, you can go to the next slide. So we, when we met and had conversation with the IOMA around this meeting and we're looking at the agenda, we really have been committed to making sure we have input that is rich and deep among the membership. And we know that ARPA dollars, there are some local ARPA dollars that are coming into the county, and we want to make a request from governance for consideration for Durham PreK's needs. But we wanted to be able to have some rich discussion about that. Yama, you want to talk about that a little bit? Monty's going to talk to us about a Jamboard opportunity. We're going to break out into groups, but.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And so what we want to really do is really take this opportunity time to really talk about how do we sort of think about equity and the equity plan, especially as we continue to obviously, again, think about the infrastructure of DPK, expanding its reach and its impact, and how do we use this ARPA dollar. And so what we're hoping that you will do is we'll break you out into groups to really identify some priority areas. By any chance, I forgot to ask, Linda, will we have any of the reports of bullet points? I thought maybe was it in the I can't remember if it was in our report around the equity plan and some of the areas that because a lot of work was thought about what the equity plan should be in the focus areas. So I would hate to at least not have that resource. Was it in our packet?
There has been some information in different places, and Monty can talk to about that in the Jamboards. There's an overall question, but she was going to review that a little bit. So we can, yeah, we can. And Kate's put in the chat also the equity plan.
Good. Perfect.
Also for your review. So, and we're going to put the we'll turn it over to Monty, and the Jamboard will be put in the chat board also.
Okay. And just before I turn over to Monty, I'm sorry to say I'm gonna have to leave due to a conflict, another meeting. So I just want to say thank you to every single member of the committee, but obviously all the staff, particularly Linda and Monty and the whole entire CCSA team for just keeping us sort of plugged in and connected and really making the best decisions, and want to wish every one of you all a really restful, healthy, and hearty Thanksgiving holiday. So sorry to leave you prematurely, but I know you are in good hands, and thank you, Monty, for the next session of this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I have put the link to the Jamboard in the chat box. If you will click on that, that'll take you to the Jamboard. You're going to be broken into 4 groups, and each group has their own slide on the Jamboard. So if you'll go to the Jamboard slide that corresponds with your group number, the slide does have the question how can ARPA funds be used to support Durham PreK and implementation of the equity plan priorities. I also, each slide have the priorities listed under the question, so you can be reminded about what those priorities are. Just note that the first four, before and after school care, which we've talked about some in this meeting, increased number of Spanish-speaking teachers with Latinx backgrounds, equity-based professional development plans for teachers, and development of a anti-racist pre-K curriculum. Those are the top four priorities identified in the equity plan, but I also included transportation, which wasn't listed as a priority just because it's such a massive undertaking, but it is something that comes up in every conversation we have at the quality subcommittee meeting, as well as you saw from the survey data that Brittany shared. Transportation is a huge equity issue, so I have also included that in the list of the equity priorities for your review. So we'll take about 20 minutes to go into the groups and discuss and identify, brainstorm ways that we can look at requesting funding, the ARPA funding to use for Durham PreK. And then if you can pick someone to report back and share the top ideas or things that your group identified when we come back together in the larger group.
And I will jump in and say we're a little behind, so probably what we'll plan to do is cut back to about 15 minutes of discussion. And because we want to honor folks' time and have time for people to come back as a group. And appreciate Monty building out the Jamboard. But we really, the next steps with this, we will synthesize your ideas and we'll be, forwarding to the county some requests. We don't have a promise of new funding. We are advocating for new funding. There are so many needs in our community. And of course, this work is very much aligned with Durham's early childhood action plan work that many of you have participated in. And we want to make sure that we're aligning with Durham's overall priorities. So, all right, we're going to move to the groups. So I think we're all back. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. So we'll start with group one, and because we want to be mindful of your time, and we want to be sure that we capture your thinking, and we'll synthesize the Jamboards and do some follow up. So who wants to weigh in from group one?
Do you want us to tell you what we have on our?
Well, just, if you want to share, if you want to share just, one or two highlights or whatever your pleasure.
I'm happy to share that we came up with basically 4. We probably could have come up with 15, but we came up with 4. First was before and after care support. The second was a one-time county-wide study on transportation so that we're ready when Build Back Better comes out. Having third is a differential of salary for teachers and teacher assistants who speak Spanish. And the fourth is incentives for vaccinations so that we can have herd immunity in Durham.
Wow, you guys were quite creative, and we haven't discussed at all any types of incentives for or even interface with vaccinations. Of course, the early childhood community has been asked to support vaccination opportunities and get information out to families. That's an interesting idea. Anybody else want to weigh in on group one's thinking?
We had a great group.
Okay, what about group two? That was my group, but I'm going to defer to somebody else to share.
I'll jump in. Mostly, I think we could say ditto. We talked a lot about RAP care and transportation feasibility study. Little details that I'll add is that RAP care would seem to sort of have a dual claim on COVID funding, on Arpa funding, because it's helping both kids and helping parents get back to work, which is important. And sort of the idea of starting with a feasibility study for transportation is important just because the cost of entry, right, the cost of starting up a transportation program would be very significant. We would really want to understand more clearly how that would work before we would, leap into or recommend somebody else, fund us leaping into that. So feasibility study there, we agree it was a good idea.
Yeah, I appreciated the conversation in our group. I thought it was really rich, and Darnell shared, just as June did earlier, about this very real fact that providers are underwriting in many instances the costs, in particular for RAP care for some of the children in the public seats. I thought, Darnell, you had some great points about that issue. Okay, do we want to move to group three?
Does anyone else from group three want to report out? Okay, I'll jump in. We talked about a lot of what you all talked about, a feasibility analysis around transportation. We talked about like wanting to be brave with these ARPA asks, like not just thinking about things that are one-time costs, but things that we could then work to build into budgets or find funding for moving forward. We talked about wanting to deal with these barriers to access first before doing a lot of expansion. And sort of perfecting our approach to the 4-year-old program before expanding to 3s. Yeah, I think we also threw around some things around how could funding be leveraged to address the wait time between application and placement, considering potentially could family childcare homes participate in Durham PreK? Is there a way to do some analysis there? Those kinds of things. It's a great discussion.
Sounds like you guys really got creative with your thinking. I do think that I agree with you that we should be thinking about these ARPA dollars in ways that will really position us for the future, because we also hope that, well, some of us hope that Build Back Better will pass and there may be opportunities for additional federal monies to come in, and we want to be at the highest readiness level to hit the ground with those dollars when they may come forward. Anybody else from group three? Okay, group four.
Spokesperson for group 4. So there were essentially 3 buckets. One was transportation, a cost assessment for transportation services at the site level, like what all would it take for a site to be able to implement having a transportation plan. And then our second category was increasing the number of Spanish-speaking teachers. And first we're talking about, are there positions that we can create for our Spanish-speaking early childhood educators that might not have their credentials? Like, could they be a site floater? Like, is there some sort of stopgap while we build that infrastructure, just to help with interpretation, translation, making sure materials, like being there to help families. Can we use funds again in the meantime for sites to contract with local organizations that provide interpretation and translation services? And then could we create a partnership with Durham Public Schools and Durham Tech to recruit bilingual students into the early childhood field? This is more of a long-term approach, but essentially creating and cultivating candidates like within Durham. I think that could be really powerful. And then last, add to reimbursement, to the reimbursement model, funds to help lower the RAP care costs for families. So give designated funds to sites that are earmarked for RAP care to help cover those costs. And that was it for Group 4. I didn't know if any of the members of Group 4 wanted to add anything.
I think it's an interesting concept to think about even paying a portion of RAP care. You know, we don't currently. So when a family, if they qualify for a DSS voucher for RAP, of course it is based on income and there is a parent copay. But, you know, thinking about that means testing and how to possibly help more families by having some more dollars. Darnella, you have your hand up.
Yes, I really like the partnership with Durham Tech to recruit more Spanish-speaking teachers in the classroom. And also maybe to add to that, you know how Head Start utilize their parents within their program, and that's how they get more Spanish-speaking families engaged in that program. If it was something we could do, like I pool a lot of my families as well, and that's going to be my strategy for increasing the number of Spanish-speaking staff that I have. But I wish there was something embedded within our program, our NC PreK and DPK programs, that we could utilize those families in that capacity and kind of put them on a career track, or we could maybe pull in, teach, and, you know, different resources we have in the community to kind of chart them on that track. That would be like game changing. We already have a staffing shortage, and to be able to pool our resources and do something like that would really be a game changer. So thank you, Group 4, for even coming up with that suggestion, because we really need that. We could really flesh that out and really make some great inroads to increasing quality and having more Spanish-speaking teachers in the classroom and in the field.
Derek, I'm interested from your point of view with Head Start in Durham already. Are you able to engage a lot of your families that English is not their first language in your parent activities? Do you have success in that arena?
We do. It's we prioritize. We don't put out anything unless it's in both languages, and we do interpretation for all of our meetings. It's especially with we've actually improved that with our virtual meetings, because Zoom has the interpretation feature. So but usually we have an interpreter for all of our meetings, and all of our material is in both English and Spanish.
Linda, I just want to mention to Darnella mentioned Teach, and we are working, we have someone who speaks Spanish in the Teach office, and we are working with different programs that actually have teachers who want to be part of the Teach program with a Quick Start program. So we certainly can work with Durham Tech on a project and include Teach to support that.
So and also Darnella mentioned the volunteerism. I think that's another thing I think that over the years that it's become expected. So what then ends up happening is you do get more Spanish speakers as they're coming out to volunteer in your classrooms. And I think we have been able to hire and train teachers from them being around little kids, because I think until you've done it, it doesn't actually occur to you that that might be something you want to do professionally. And then those Spanish speakers can also see the need. So as they're interacting with their children in the centers. So I appreciate Darnella lifting that up, because that actually is a good recruiting tool as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And I do think that I'm hopeful that DCDE is going to potentially open up more of their trainings to having curricular materials in Spanish. It's not, they're not widely available from the regulatory system. But we definitely want to make a commitment here. So Katie, you want to go to the next slide? So as we close up our discussion, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? No, a couple people had to leave early. So our next steps, we will take the feedback from the Jamboards, and if we have questions, we may loop back to some of you from the different groups. But we'll be putting together a recommendation from governance, IOMA. It'll come from IOMA and I, but we will vet it through this group and provide it to the county. We want to get in front of them with our suggestions moving forward, any opportunity that comes in. Drew, you raising your hand?
Just a quick observation about sort of translation and interpretation. I would say that the county is probably behind many institutions in terms of its own language access planning and implementation. But I think, were we to formulate a request along those lines, I think pointing out that Durham Public Schools, Head Start, the city and the county are all working on this, it makes sense that Durham PreK and its providers would be trying to move forward, at least as fast, but kind of going along for the ride as well.
Thanks, Drew. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute?
I guess just the only thing I would ask, Linda, is by January, we should have an idea of where Build Back Better stands. And I think that money will come fast, or at least there will be a rush to start thinking about it. And I feel like Durham is in one of those situations where we could have a lot to contribute in terms of lessons learned that could really help shape the state of doing that. And so I hope that there'll be some time, like for a cursory conversation on that in January, and then more time in March, because I worry about how that money will come down if people who have experienced this aren't weighing in more.
That's a great point, Beth. And we are working hard to position ourselves to be parts of those conversations. In particular, in reading the Build Back Better information, the state doesn't have to take the money. And obviously we want to be sure that we're pushing our state to accept any money from Build Back Better. But there is a provision in there for local application from governmental entities if the state doesn't accept those resources. But obviously we need to get the bill passed first. But I agree with you that I think if it passes, when it passes, the things will happen quickly, and we want to make sure that we are really in the forefront to both share our lessons and to receive funding that we can leverage. We imagine the state will likely consider those funds coming down through NC PreK. And of course, we don't know, but we will be working closely to make sure we get good information and that we're ready and able to be able to implement quicker than anybody else. So, but definitely will be on the agenda.
I was just going to say, the only other thing is I would assume that it would be a quick decision for Durham to accept it. But I think if it did end up being a municipal decision, that I would hope Durham could be a resource to other municipalities.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just a reminder, we presently are consulting on a consulting contract to Buncombe County Smart Start around their pre-K expansion initiative. And we actually have a lot of lessons learned from our work consulting with them from August to December this year. We're consulting with them on their universal access initiative. And so I do think some of those lessons learned are definitely could be beneficial across the state. Anything else as we wrap up? Okay, well, once again, I know I can speak for Ioma to say thank you so much for your time. It's always so gratifying what our attendance looks like for these meetings. Especially right before a holiday, it's even more gratifying. And we'll remind you, our next meeting's January 20th. Marina shared that the Quality Subcommittee meeting is January 13th. And we'll send out information to you about that in case you'd like to join. And so we don't have to have a motion to adjourn, but we can do it. Does anybody else have anything before we hop off? All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great holiday. And thank you again so much for your time and your support of Durham PreK. Thanks for being here, Derek and June. I know you guys are busy with your sites.
You're welcome. Glad I could pitch in. My holiday brain is kicked in, so I don't know how present I was, but
hey, you know what? I'm always grateful when you're here because I know running sites, I just don't know how you have time to do anything.
yeah, especially right now. It's this has just been a crazy. I am so I'm actually in New Orleans at a conference.
Oh.
So yeah. So yeah, so I would hope to enjoy New Orleans a little bit, but I keep getting these phone calls. Literally, this was on my schedule, and I have one other thing on my schedule to attend this week. They won't leave me alone. So
I'm so sorry to hear that. But I feel grateful that you kept us on your schedule. It just means so much when you're here.